Welcome to the InStory show. I'm Devorah Spilman, your host, and our theme this season is how do you expand into a new story and stop hiding your spiritual gifts? Dare to be seen for who you really are by saying yes to your soul and telling your story. So today I'm thrilled to welcome Stephanie Ryan. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, how are you?
Wonderful. Well, I'm going to read a bit about you, then we'll dive in.
Okay, great.
Stephanie Ryan is an artist, author, and energy healer whose work bridges creativity and wellness. With over a decade of experience in the art licensing industry, her uplifting watercolor designs have appeared on home decor, stationery, and gifts in major retailers worldwide. Alongside her thriving art business, Stephanie guides others in using watercolor as a tool for stress relief, nervous system regulation, and inner calm. She combines her background in intuitive painting with her training in Reiki and sound healing, offering gentle practices that help people soften, release, and reconnect with themselves. Her mission is simple: to let art become a path to healing. Oh, I just love that so much. So, all right, what does it mean to you to expand into a new story?
I think that for me, it's always moving forward. And at the same time that I'm moving forward, I'm releasing. I'm working on releasing patterns from the past, learning as much as I can about myself, and always just really trying to connect with my intuition, with my purpose, and figure out how to move forward and let whatever's meant to come.
I mean, what a different world it is to live like that.
Mhm.
Like, seriously, rather than, like, always trying to follow the rules to prove to somebody else that you're doing it right. Like, isn't that
Mhm.
such a profound, like, I think that is a new story that we're working on.
Yes, yes, because I feel like I've always just kind of done what it is that I felt like I needed to do, and it was never the traditional path ever.
Right. I like to joke, my company's called InStory, and when people come into my InStory way, say it's the first time most of us have ever been in the in group. Right.
Right,
It's just
right.
not us.
No, no, always kind of, walked my own path and just not always part of the group.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah.
welcome to our world, and everyone watching, you are all welcome to. We want you to be yourself. So tell us a little of your story, because I have a hunch that you didn't always get to live like this.
No, no, and I feel like where my story started was with chronic illness. Like I was fine one day and I was on a path and then I was sick and I didn't know why.
But wait, back us up just a little to what you were doing. Like, what I'd love to hear what you wanted to do and what you ended up doing, because usually those don't go together.
Well, I was kind of lucky. I was on the path already. I was working. I was. I got sick when I was 29, and at the time, I was working for a doll company called Little Souls, and this was in the 90s. And they were actually really popular. They were these 24-inch self sculpture dolls. That it was two women that had started this business, and they were artists and it was this amazing kind of community, and that's where I went from like being this regular person, you know um under my parents roof, being raised a certain way, and then being led into this group of artists that were about social causes and creating, and it was amazing. And at the height of the dolls fame, I guess you could say, we were on Oprah, like the owner was on Oprah, and Demi Moore was collecting the dolls, and we were doing like the New York gift show, and Al Gore came to our studio on his presidential trail. So like things were happening, and that was my introduction into the art world, and that's where I learned about gift shows and product and licensing, art licensing, and all kinds of things. Like they were my formative years there, and things were going great. um, and then I got sick. And so everything came to a halt. And I had to figure out like what was going on with me. And I found out like 11 years later with a diagnosis of getting a diagnosis of Lyme disease.
Oh,
So, I was great and then I wasn't. I had pain, I had brain fog, I had all kinds of things, and I went to, every different kind of doctor you could go to, MDs and functional medicine doctors and psychologists, and that's actually where I first became introduced to energy healers and started my Reiki path there. And so, you always hear people talk about, how these kinds of things happen for you and not to you. And that's a really good example of it. Like this was all for me, even though I didn't want it to happen. And so that's kind of where it all started for me. It took 11 years to get the diagnosis. And then I went through the Lyme disease treatment, which was horrible. It was like 3 months every day, sitting for 4 hours, with a pick line in my arm, getting intravenous IVs. And then after it was done, I felt a little bit better, but it took me months to recover from that. And yeah, so I had gotten to a point where I still had symptoms and I just had to learn how to manage it in the world. And it was like a daily like endurance test, like how much could I do in one day. So that's kind of where it started, and that's where I had to figure out what to do next, because I couldn't, like, I was still, while all that was going on, I had left the doll company, I had gotten married, I went back to art school, um, and I actually got a really great job working for Lennox, the dinnerware company. So I was in like this kind of corporate environment, creating art as a senior concept designer. So on the surface, I was doing really well, but every day I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't know how I'm going to make it through the day. And I had long commutes and everything, but for whatever reason, I kept pushing and was working it out, the best that I could. And but I always had this need to do more than what I was doing. On the outside, I was creating dinnerware. I mean, how amazing is that? But I'm like, yeah, no, that I'm supposed to be doing something else. And I just didn't know what. And with being sick all the time, I I knew I didn't want to work full time anymore. And so I I I got this like I was at home one night and I was in bed and I was exhausted and I knew that I wanted to do this other thing this but I couldn't. And this voice kind of came and said, just paint in bed. And I was like, I'm not going to paint in bed. That's silly. And like, no, just paint in bed. And so I knew I had watercolors and I was like, well, maybe I can paint in bed with my watercolors. Like, let me just go grab them because I was so frustrated because I wanted to do so much more than I was able to do. So I grabbed my watercolors and I just started painting florals. And at the time, my work was more graphic, acrylics, and it always had something to do with florals, which I don't know where that came from because I never really knew the names of flowers or anything. It was just kind of something that came out. And everything kind of changed after that because I was able to paint in bed and explore what it is that I wanted my art to be. And I bought one of those carts like they have in hospitals that you can roll over the bed, and I set up all my paints on there and I just went, and that kind of opened everything up. And I spent probably the next, year developing a style and figuring out what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do art licensing, which is when you create art and you sell it to manufacturers and then they put that art on product, which was something I had experienced at the doll company and at Lennox. And so I knew that's where I wanted to go, but I wasn't really sure how to get there because I still had this full-time job. And art licensing, it takes, I mean, from the time you sign a contract, if you can sign a contract, it can take 18 months to make any money. And you don't know if you're going to make money. It all depends on how it sells. So it was this risky business to get into. And I don't know why I had, like, oh, that is what I have to do, because there were no guarantees at all. And so through some synchronistic events, I was able to pick up some freelance jobs with some companies, which then gave me kind of a steady income because they were like on retainer, and I was able to quit my full-time job.
Yay.
Yeah. I remember telling my husband at the time what I was doing, and he thought I was crazy. He's like, "You're doing what? Like, you're giving up your benefits, your 401, you're like, you're doing what?" And I'm like, "I can't do it anymore. Like, this is what I have to do. This is where the calling is, and I don't know where I'm going to land, but this is what I have to do."
You're so not alone in this, and those synchronistic events that happen are that sign that gives women the courage to stand up to that argument, right? Because
Yeah.
you had that argument in your own head.
Yes.
Your
Of
husband was
course.
not articulating something you hadn't thought of.
No, and I'm very rational. Like I have the whole
Right,
artist thing going on, but I also am very grounded and very rational in things. And I knew it was a big gamble, and I was like, I have to do it. Like I
right,
just trust it, really, really trust it.
right, right. So what happened when you did that?
I started
Yeah,
I
I hear that.
I kind of just jumped in. I started doing the freelance work, which was great, and I developed art collections for art licensing. And I went and I found agents, and it took about a year to get things going. And but it eventually started working, and I had the income from the freelance business coming in, and then little by little trickles from the art licensing. And between the two of them, I was able to kind of grow this business. And it's been 14 years. And so I've had, my artwork on hundreds of greeting cards and dinnerware and wall art and, you name it, shower curtains. And so it's been amazing. And like, you would think at that point, like, all right, you did it. You did it. But like, no, there's this voice in my head that says, this is great, but you're not quite where you need to be. And I was like, what is that? Like, and it kept nudging me to
Mhm.
keep going.
What to where? Like, so lead us there because I think you're not alone in this because that's still all producing things for everybody else,
Yes. And the
right?
things would come in, I would get these samples in the mail, and they were beautiful, like, greeting cards and all this stuff. And everybody be like, oh my God, you did what? And I would be like, yeah, it's great. It's great. Like, I was proud of myself, but at the same time, I was like, this feels a little empty to me,
Yeah.
So it forced me to really kind of do a lot of soul searching. And this is where the spiritual stuff started to come in.
Mhm.
So I was still sick, I was still struggling every day with the chronic illness. Um, but I have always loved the spiritual aspect of life. And since I was a teenager, I was definitely always woo woo. And I always had this calling to bring it into the artwork, but I didn't know how. And I drove myself crazy trying to figure it out. I drove all my friends crazy. I probably hurt my business by having this split focus. Like, I'd be showing florals one day, and then I would be showing like intuitive symbols that I painted, and like the customer was like, what is going on here? Like I was really just searching for something. And, through all that, life started kind of getting interesting again, but not in the best way. So it was like around COVID time, and I decided I had been divorced for about 7 or 8 years, and I decided to start dating again, and I was 50. I was like, what am I doing? And I went down this whole new path that I thought was going to be amazing, which the relationship was. But then my dad died, and my mom got sick and had a heart attack after he died, and
Mm.
I got I got Lyme disease again.
Oh,
And like it was like one thing after another, and I was like, oh my God, I'm in a growth period, and like, how did this happen? Like, here's my another dark night of the soul. And I was like, haven't
wow.
I been through this already? I'm still like, I feel like I've been in it for 20 some years. So it was like one thing after another, and it was forcing me to look at patterns,
Mhm.
look at my life, being with with Anthony, he was forcing me to like examine myself. Like we
Mm,
were kind of mirrors for each other. And
mm.
so I started doing like a lot of inner work, a lot of like soul work, releasing patterns, all while this bad stuff is happening. And just like growing up with my mom, who I love dearly, but she was a narcissist and she had a mood disorder. And so really coming to terms with how I was affected as a kid, developed all these patterns, and was still kind of living through these patterns and stuff. So all this started happening, and but then something kind of shifted where the little glimmers started to come out again. So it was about 3 years of all this stuff going on, which kind of culminated. It was like a 5-year process, with which actually ended with the death of my mom. So 5 years, lost both of my parents and all this stuff. But these glimmers started coming up, and they were answers to my health problems.
Wow.
And it was pretty powerful. Like as I was releasing patterns, I was working on myself. I had a therapist working through things. These glimmers started showing up, and I started to receive answers about what was going on, because I had gotten Lyme disease, but then I got treated. And for 20 some years, I'm still struggling with brain fog and fatigue and all these weird lingering symptoms. And so I found out that it was actually nervous system dysregulation and
Wow.
limbic system impairment. So these like gifts were being given to me, and I was finding programs to follow. And the whole limbic system impairment thing is amazing, because your body, it's like your limbic system gets caught in this like trauma loop, and it starts producing symptoms, like
Wow.
very real symptoms, and people don't realize that it's coming from their limbic system.
Wow.
And so I started doing brain retraining and neuroplasticity work, like Dr. Joe Dispenza work, and the symptoms started going away,
Wow.
which
Wow.
was absolutely amazing. And a lot of nervous system regulation work, just learning how to breathe, not being like, I found out I had this like chronic anxiety disorder, which you would never know because I'm really calm and laid back. But, I was stuck in like a freeze state for years.
Wow.
So all of
Wow.
that led me to the work that I'm doing now, which
Right.
is,
Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about how this is all integrated together, because you're not alone. It is so hard, but so true that so often our struggles become our wisdom. They become this tremendous work we're able to create in the world. We don't want to go through it that way, but once you're on the other side, if you do your work, it really does become wisdom to help the next person not have to take so long.
yeah, yeah. So it turned into me using art to heal myself. So I
Wow.
was learning all of these nervous system regulation tools, like breathing, just like simple things like, what it like bilateral stimulation, getting both sides of your brain to kind of work together, breathing techniques, eye movement, like all these things that you're like, well, what's that going to do? But it really does like works on your vagus nerve and calms you down, and a lot of visualizations to that was probably the biggest thing when I was doing more of the limbic system impairment work. Was I was so heavy, like my energy was so heavy for so long.
Mm.
um and just doing visualizations about feeling better and what that feeling feels like, and just like entering, like having that energy enter into your body, feeling like in your heart, um what it would feel like to live like the life you want to live, like all that, like if you follow Joe Dispenza at all, like feeling like those feelings and seeing yourself where you want to be and all that. That probably was the thing that healed me up the quickest,
Wow.
because the more positive I was like in my heart, the more I felt the energy dissipate, and I
Yeah.
felt myself get lighter.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
amazing. And so I started using watercolor, and like integrating those kinds of techniques into my watercolor paintings and started, and I developed these exercises, very simple exercises where I could just walk up to the page, do a very simple exercise, incorporate some breathing techniques, and then walk away and go do whatever else I needed to do.
Oh,
And it was like doing a nervous system regulation tool. But it was through art, which is
wow.
so much more fun.
Right.
you know?
But I think that's a big part of it is that when I speak with an interview artist, like it is this joy of the color on the paper and the feeling of it. Like it is this process of getting out of your head.
Yes. Out of your head, feeling the brush, feeling what that brush feels like on the paper. Like, how does it feel when there's more water on your brush? How does it feel when there's less? It feels sticky. So these are like nervous system regulation tools, like really feeling, embodying your body and feeling the things.
Mm.
So it just naturally, just kind of went with the art.
So take us a little bit farther now into
Mm.
some of what your business has turned into, like how you have integrated all of this together and what shapes have been coming out and what have you been seeing? Because this is like what I mean when I feel this sense that we're expanding into a new story. Because here you had this long story that you were in for so many years, but you're not in that story anymore. And I feel like the work you're doing is really trying to help people expand out of their old stories. So I'd love for you to say a little bit more about how the direction your work is going and what's happening with it.
Well, it's interesting because it's taking some turns that I didn't think it was going to take. So I was like, okay, I have this, like, I figured out how to combine more of the spiritual aspects of my work into the watercolors. I'm helping people regulate their nervous systems, like it's healing work, like I'm here, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And then that voice came in again. It was like, this is great, but you're not quite there yet. And so I've been stepping out and doing more healing work, like Reiki and sound healing um and in-person painting workshops, and really stretching myself to embody this thing that I think was always meant to do, which is healing work and healing through art, like two of them like side by side. So I don't necessarily have to combine them anymore, but they can live together.
Mhm. It cracks me up so much that you have this voice that keeps saying to you, "That's great, but you're not quite there yet."
Not quite there yet. And it may never stop doing that.
That's I
That's why we're
know.
here. But it's like you have to listen to that voice, and it may be the scariest thing that you have to do, because believe me, I am an introvert. Like I don't like going out in public and interacting with people and talking about what it is I'm doing. Like I always kind of hid behind the art with my
Mm,
business. I didn't put myself out there all that much.
right.
And now I'm forcing myself to kind of put myself out there.
Good
And
for you. I
yeah.
I work with a lot of introverts, and it is to your credit because I know for introverts, when you go out in the world, it's at a higher cost. Like I'm an extrovert, so I get more energy from going out, but introverts
Mm.
have to recover, and
Yes.
it's important to just notice that about yourself. And a lot of artists hide behind their art. I have lots of artists who I'm like, they know they have to start talking and telling their stories. So good for you because it there is a part of for artists of being seen, like not hiding behind your art. Like there is
Yeah.
this kind of hiding we each do in certain stages,
Mhm.
and that's that inner voice. So I'm wondering, are you finding because you've really trusted that voice that you are also being able to help other people you work with to trust, to hear and trust that voice?
Yeah, so it's coming out more and more. Like I feel like that's where I'm meant to go. I'm meant to do more one-on-one in-person work with people. And so in the in-person workshops, it's really starting to kind of come out where I can really talk and interact with people and help them through whatever it is that they're going through at the time. And then the Reiki and the healing work as well. Like really just sharing. And it's more like I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert in nervous system regulation. Like I you know, I'm a patient. Like, I experienced it and figured it out, but I'm not an expert. And so I don't know. I feel like I teach through my experience that I've had,
Right,
and
but
that's how I
that's
help
being a
people the
healer.
most.
There's a difference in being an expert than being a healer. Like, a
Mm,
lot of healers have a knowing that is not just from what's written in someone's book or what someone tells you. It's like you heal, you use all these modalities to heal yourself. You get your own, and it's also, this is the other news story, is trusting the things that come to us.
mm.
That is what you know because it comes to you directly.
And it comes in so many ways.
Right,
You get so many messages at the same time while you're doing the work.
right,
It's very interesting, and I think I've always had that, like, while I'm painting, having the messages come through, but I never knew that's what it was.
right, right. We weren't in a culture that trained us or encouraged us to trust this other way of knowing. You
Mhm,
wanted your knowing to always be because someone who knew more than you told you,
mm,
right?
yes.
So that sense, I'm not an expert, but that's the point. There's a different standard. That's a new, it's this other, more intuitive way of direct knowing. It's not that we don't train and study, we do, but then there's another dimension, I think, that is much more expansive
Mhm.
and much more of a direct knowing, and more that's that spiritual side, and more we're learning to recognize it, trust it, and see how powerful it is. Are you seeing that also?
I feel like there is a huge calling right now for everybody to go inward.
Yeah,
We have everything that we need inside of us, and we are powerful beings, and we forgot. And so I feel like we're all going through a remembering of how powerful we are and
right.
how we can do all these things that we never thought that we can do.
I'm so with you on that one. I really, that's why I think this phrase "expand into a new story" came to me,
Mm,
because I feel that, like, exactly what you're saying, and I want all of you watching to notice, what have you always known? Like you said, I've always known certain things, or
mhm.
we get to reclaim this genius that's inherent, like you said.
Yes.
So, all right, tell us a little bit about your free gift so people can get a taste and a start into your world.
Well, that's what the free gift is. It's a short intro into what it means to paint your way to peace. So it's a watercolor exercise that just takes you through a very simple exercise with some nervous system regulation techniques like interwoven into it, and just to give you a little taste of how you can quiet your mind, you can feel your shoulders start to relax, and just find a really peaceful place, even if it's just for a couple of minutes.
Right, and when you do this and you start, you'll be in Stephanie's world, you'll be able to reach out to her and connect, so that if
Mhm.
you are going, "Yes, yes, yes," you can take more steps, because we don't do this expansion sitting around by ourselves in our head that's spinning. So I'm always saying to people, "Don't stay stuck in the spin cycle,"
Right.
of overthinking. Like,
Yeah.
do, if this lights you up, so get the free gift, do the process, and then if you're brave, you can share your experience with us in the Facebook group that we have for the show, the InStory World, and then you'll be able to respond to Stephanie and connect, because I want all of you watching to trust that creative spiritual place inside yourself and that voice, and say yes to it. So grab her gift, and we're going to wrap up, but leave us with the last couple thoughts, Stephanie, before we wrap up.
Well, for the class, there's no painting experience necessary. So if you've never picked up a paintbrush, don't worry about it. Just go for it and do it and follow through. Um, I just wanted to thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. It was amazing. So great to meet you, and I'm excited to be a part of your community. Thank you.
Thank you, and no hiding, look, Stephanie's being brave, she's an introvert and an artist, and she's telling you her story and showing up to inspire all of you creative introverts to come out of hiding too. So,
Yeah.
thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and as I always say in farewell, remember to go out in the world, share your story, live your purpose, and be a blessing. Bye, folks.